3 hours before my wedding, my mother-in-law handed the photographer a fake schedule one that would make sure I walked down the aisle completely alone. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this one, if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss a story like this one. And if you've been here before, you already know what to do. Smash that like button. It really helps this channel grow. Okay, let's get into it, because this story still makes my hand shake a little when I think about it. My name is Rachel Doyle, and 2 years ago I married a man named Daniel Cortez. Daniel is kind, steady, the kind of guy who remembers your coffee order after one conversation. When he proposed to me at his sister's backyard barbecue, down on one knee next to a cooler full of beer, I said yes before he even finished the sentence. But there was one small problem. Actually, she wasn't small at all. She was 5'2", wore too much perfume, and her name was Linda Cortez, Daniel's mother. From the very first dinner I had with Daniel's family, I felt it. That look, the one where a woman sizes you up like she's pricing a used car. Linda smiled at me with her mouth, but her eyes were doing something else entirely. She asked me questions like, "So what do your parents do? And have you ever been serious with anyone before, Daniel?" Like she was interviewing me for a job I didn't apply for. Daniel laughed it off. "That's just Mom," he told me one night, rubbing my shoulders after a tense family dinner. "She's protective. She'll come around." She did not come around. When we got engaged, Linda didn't hug me. She hugged Daniel, held his face in her hands, and said, "Are you sure about this, honey?" Right in front of me, like I wasn't standing there holding a diamond ring on my finger. I should have known then that this woman was not going to let me marry her son without a fight. But I loved Daniel, and I told myself that love could get us through anything, even a mother-in-law who looked at me like I was a stain on her favorite tablecloth. The wedding planning started out fine. We booked a beautiful venue out in the Hudson Valley. This old renovated barn with string lights and a view of the mountains. My best friend, Priya Shah, was my maid of honor, and she helped me pick out everything: the flowers, the seating charts, even the playlist for the reception. But slowly, things started to shift. Linda accidentally invited 20 extra guests without asking us. She told the caterer she wanted to make a few small changes to the menu, and suddenly half our appetizers were gone, replaced with dishes nobody asked for. She called the florist directly and tried to change our color scheme from blush pink to a deep maroon, because, in her words, pink is for children. Every time I brought it up to Daniel, he'd sigh and say the same thing: "I'll talk to her." But nothing ever changed. Linda kept pushing, kept inserting herself, kept acting like this wedding was hers and not mine. Then, about a month before the wedding, something happened that made my stomach drop. I was scrolling through Facebook late one night, unable to sleep, when I saw a post in a private family group I didn't even know I'd been added to by mistake. It was Linda, writing to her sister. "I still don't think Rachel is right for Daniel. She's not from a good family. I give it 3 years before he realizes his mistake. I just have to be patient." I stared at that screen for a long time. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a rope around my ribs and pulled. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the dark, reading those words over and over. I showed Daniel the next morning. He went pale, then red, then he called his mother immediately. I could hear Linda's voice through the phone, sharp and defensive. "That was private. You're not supposed to see that." I didn't mean it the way it sounds. But words like that only mean one thing, no matter how you try to soften them later. Daniel apologized to me for days. He promised his mother would back off, that he'd set real boundaries this time. And for about 2 weeks, things actually got quiet. Too quiet, looking back. I should have known Linda wasn't done. Women like her don't just give up. They regroup. Because 3 weeks before my wedding day, I found out that quiet wasn't peace. It was Linda planning something so cruel, so calculated, that even now I have trouble believing a mother could do that to her own son's fiancé. And the worst part? I almost walked into it completely blind. It started with a phone call from my wedding coordinator, a sweet woman named Monica Alvarez, who had been nothing but professional through the entire process. She called me on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice a little hesitant. "Rachel, I just want to double-check something with you," she said. "Your mother-in-law called me yesterday asking to move the ceremony start time to 11 in the morning instead of 4 in the afternoon. She said there was a scheduling conflict and that you and Daniel had already agreed to it." My stomach dropped. Daniel and I had never talked about changing the time. Not once. "Monica, I never agreed to that," I said slowly. "Did she say anything else?" "She also asked if she could handle the seating chart changes herself, since she said you were, quote, too stressed to deal with it. I told her I'd need to confirm with you first before making any changes." I thanked God for Monica right then. If she hadn't called to double check, Linda could have quietly rearranged my entire wedding day without me knowing until it was too late. That night, I sat Daniel down at our kitchen table and told him everything. His jaw tightened in a way I hadn't seen before. He wasn't just annoyed anymore. He looked scared, like he was finally seeing his mother clearly for the first time. "She's trying to control the whole day," I said. "Not help. Control." Daniel rubbed his hands over his face. "I don't understand why she's like this. I really don't." That's when I decided I couldn't just sit back and hope Linda would behave. I needed to know exactly what she was planning, because clearly, talking to her directly wasn't working. So I did something I'm not proud of, but I don't regret it either. I asked Priya, my maid of honor, to keep a close eye on the family group chat that Linda used with Daniel's aunts and cousins, the one I definitely wasn't invited to, but Priya's husband, who's Daniel's cousin, was still in. 2 weeks before the wedding, Priya called me, practically breathless. "Rachel, you need to see this." She sent me screenshots. Linda had written a message to the family explaining her backup plan in case, in her words, "this wedding falls apart like I think it will." She'd arranged for the photographer to shift the schedule so that during the 15 minutes I was supposed to be taking photos alone with Daniel, Linda would instead pull him aside for a private mother-son moment, just in case things don't work out the way everyone hopes. But that wasn't even the worst part. Linda had also contacted a woman named Vanessa Kim, Daniel's ex-girlfriend from college, and invited her to the wedding as a family friend, seating her at a table close to the front. Not to be cruel for no reason. Linda had specifically written, "I just think it would be good for Daniel to remember he has options." I read that message 3 times before it fully sank in. This woman was trying to put an ex-girlfriend in front of my husband-to-be on our wedding day, hoping something, anything, would make him doubt marrying me. I sat on my bedroom floor with my phone in my hand, feeling something twist inside me. Not sadness this time. Something sharper. I thought about calling Linda and confronting her right there. I thought about crying to Daniel again and making him fight another battle for me. But I realized something important that night. If I kept reacting to Linda, she would keep finding new ways to attack. I needed to stop playing defense. I needed a plan of my own. A smart one. One that wouldn't blow up in a screaming match, wouldn't give Linda the drama she clearly wanted, and wouldn't put Daniel in the middle, forced to choose between his mother and his wife. I called Monica, my coordinator, the next morning and asked her a simple question. Is there any way to make sure that only approved people can access or change anything on the wedding day? Timeline, seating, vendor instructions, all of it? Monica said yes, absolutely, and she suggested something I hadn't thought of. She could put everything, every single vendor contact, every schedule, every seating decision, under a private planning portal that only Daniel and I had the password to. Any changes from that point forward had to come through us directly, in writing, or they simply wouldn't happen. That was step one, quietly taking back control without announcing it to Linda. Step two was Vanessa. I didn't want to be petty and uninvite her, because, honestly, that would have given Linda exactly the drama she wanted, and it would have hurt Daniel, who genuinely had no idea his mother had reached out to his ex. Instead, I asked Monica to simply move Vanessa's table assignment to the far back corner, near the kitchen doors, the same section as distant coworkers and plus ones nobody really knew. Polite, professional, completely deniable as anything other than normal seating logistics. Step 3 was the photography schedule. I called our photographer myself, a woman named Grace Whitfield, and asked her directly whether anyone had contacted her about changing our timeline. Actually, yes, Grace said carefully. Linda called me last week and said you two wanted a special segment for her and Daniel alone, right in the middle of your couple's portrait session. I asked Grace to keep the original schedule exactly as Daniel and I had planned it, and to only accept timeline changes directly from me or Daniel, in writing, going forward. Grace, bless her, said she'd actually felt uncomfortable about the request from the start since it hadn't come from the actual couple. Every step I took, I made sure of one thing. Nothing I did was mean. Nothing was petty. Nothing could be used against me later as proof that I was some dramatic bridezilla starting a family war. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't accusing. I was simply, quietly, making sure that Linda's plan had no room left to work. But I still had one problem left. What was I supposed to do about that Facebook message, and the group chat screenshots, and everything Linda had said? Because deep down, I didn't just want to stop her plan. I wanted her to understand, clearly and permanently, that this behavior was over, that she would never get another chance to do something like this again. Daniel didn't know about most of what I'd done yet, and he definitely didn't know what I was planning for the wedding day itself, a moment I'd been quietly setting up for almost a week, something that would let the truth come out in front of everyone, without me ever having to raise my voice. Linda thought she still had control of the day. She had no idea it had already slipped through her fingers. The morning of the wedding, the sky was that soft, clear blue you only get a few times a year. I remember standing in front of the mirror in my dress, my mom fixing my veil behind me, and feeling strangely calm. Not nervous calm, ready calm. Daniel texted me around 9 that morning. Whatever happens today, I love you. I've got your back. All the way. I smiled at my phone and typed back, I know. Trust me. The ceremony went off without a single hitch. 4 o'clock, exactly as planned. No surprise time change. No last-minute chaos. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, and when I saw Daniel standing there, his eyes already filling up. None of the stress from the last few months mattered anymore. For those few minutes, it was just us. Linda sat in the front row, dressed in deep maroon, that same color she tried to force onto my flowers. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue like a proud, loving mother. I almost laughed, remembering the Facebook message still saved on my phone. The reception started smoothly, too. Dinner, toasts, dancing. Vanessa sat quietly in the back corner, polite and clearly uncomfortable, and left early without incident. Grace, our photographer, followed our exact timeline, and there was no secret mother-son moment sprung on us in the middle of our couple's session. Every single trap Linda had set had simply, quietly, failed to go off. But I wasn't finished. Around 9 that night, right before the final dance, Monica came up to me with a small nod, our signal. I walked over to the DJ booth and picked up the microphone myself, something I'd arranged with him 2 days earlier. "Hi everyone," I said, smiling out at the crowd. "Before we do our last dance, I just want to take a second to thank a few people who made today so perfect." I thanked my parents. I thanked Priya. I thanked our vendors by name, Monica, Grace, our caterer. The room was warm, everyone smiling, glasses raised. Then I looked toward the front row. "And I especially want to thank Linda," I said, "for teaching me something really important this year." Linda's smile flickered, uncertain. "She taught me that a wedding day can survive anything," I continued, keeping my voice light. "Almost sweet, even last-minute schedule changes nobody approved. Even seating surprises nobody asked for. Because at the end of the day, Daniel and I made sure this celebration was built on honesty. And honesty always wins." I never said her name again after that. I never mentioned Vanessa, or the Facebook post, or the group chat. I didn't have to. Every single person at those front tables who'd seen those screenshots Priya had shared, every cousin, every aunt, understood exactly what I meant. I watched the color drain slowly from Linda's face as she realized the entire family already knew. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on his mother. He hadn't known I was going to say anything, but he didn't stop me either. Linda left the reception early that night, claiming a headache. Nobody chased after her. The weeks that followed were quiet in a different way than before. Daniel finally had the conversation with his mother that he'd been avoiding for years. A real one. Not a soft apology followed by more excuses. He told her plainly that if she ever tried to interfere in our marriage again in any way, she wouldn't be welcome in our home. Not out of cruelty, out of respect for himself and for me. Linda didn't apologize right away. People like her rarely do. But 3 months later, she sent me a card, just a few lines, admitting she'd been wrong to try to control things, wrong to reach out to Vanessa, wrong about all of it. I don't know if she fully meant it, but it was more than I ever expected. And it was enough for Daniel and me to slowly, carefully, let her back into small parts of our life. On our terms this time. Looking back, I never screamed at Linda. I never publicly humiliated her, never even said her name in that speech. I just quietly took back control of my own wedding day, protected the people I loved, and let the truth speak for itself. And honestly, that felt like the most powerful revenge of all. If this story hit home for you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever dealt with a mother-in-law like Linda? I'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more real-life revenge stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.